Thank you so much to everybody for joining our panel, and thank you so much to Kathleen Kellye and everybody at the Suffolk Mystery Authors Festival for putting this on. I know how challenging this past year has been, and I know as somebody who does a lot of virtual events and hosts virtual events, I know that the tech is still challenging no matter how often we do it. So what I'm saying is my mic's probably going to cut out at any point. So apologies in advance.
Okay, we'll be okay. We'll be fine.
But we have roughly, we challenged ourselves with 40 minutes or so to discuss the past, present, and future in publishing, and also a little bit about Kellye's makeup. So
mostly.
We'll get to that in a second, but first I wanted to ask everybody to introduce themselves, and I'll start. My name is, as you can tell from my little YouTube or my Zoom thing, Ed Aymar. I have my most recent book is They're Gone. It came out under EA Bars last year, and I have a monthly column with the Washington Independent Review of Books, and I host DC's Noir at the Bar series. So I'll go to Abby.
Also, he was nominated for an Anthony Award. He doesn't want to share that with you.
I was nominated for an Anthony
and got
Award,
some starred reviews. I'm going to be everyone's hype man.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't win the Anthony, but I am protesting those results.
Who won it?
Taking it to court.
Who won it?
Miss Pandian. Pondian. Yes. Yeah. Who is fantastic. And she's not here, but make sure you mention I said nice things. Abby. Can you tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. I am Abby Vandiver. I also write as Abby Colette. I'm a hybrid author, so I've self-published and I've traditionally published. My last book came out Tuesday, just this past Tuesday, A Game of Cones. It was the sequel to A Daily Insight Scoop. And I write cozy mysteries, which means I kill people, but in a nice way.
And we should mention that if you've opened the New York Times, today's crime fiction review by Sarah Wyman mentions Game of Cones by Abby. So congrats.
Congratulations.
And I still can't stop smiling.
Yeah, Sarah's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Kellye, do you want to go next?
Sure. Actually, I'm Kellye Garrett. I wrote the Detective by Day mysteries. They won the Anthony, the Agatha, the Lefty, and the Ippy. They're on the Today Show as well. They're not currently published, though. So my publisher gave me my rights back. So you can't buy them anywhere, but they are great if you could buy them. I'm moving into domestic suspense. I have a story I'm working on that's about two estranged sisters. I am a co-founder of Crime Writers of Color along with Gigi Pondian and Walter Mosley. I'm on the Sisters in Crime board. I'm on the Pitchforks board. I do sleep though, I promise. I'm also a super fierce advocate for inclusivity and diversity in crime fiction. So.
And Austin?
Who does not want to follow that in any way, shape, form, manner.
Please, let's try.
I'm Austin Camacho. I write the Hannibal Jones mystery series and also the Stark and O'Brien adventure thrillers, and have for a whole lot of years. And I'm also the editor, for want of a better term, of Intrigue Publishing, which is a small press in Maryland, who will now be chasing after Kellye now that I know that some really, really good books are not in print right now. That's enough out of me.
Sure. So that's a really good segue to the first question I had. And Kellye, I think it'd be, given what you mentioned about your first two books, the success they had, and the subsequent shuttering for Midnight Ink. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to publishing? And I'll ask the same question to Abby and Austin as well.
Sure, I'll try to be short. So I, in 2014, I had the idea in 2011 for what became Hollywood Homicide. It is a cozy, kind of like a lighter weight mystery, like Abby's, a little bit more edgy. And it has a Black woman as the main character. And at that time, there weren't any Black women in cozies and amateur detective. And I was very naive, and I thought, oh, obviously nobody's writing them, so I'll break in. And it wasn't that. It was just nobody was publishing them, which is different. So I ended up getting my agent through Pitch Wars, Michelle Richter Fuse, who's Ed's agent as well. And we tried to sell the book for a year, and everyone rejected it. And then finally, Terry Bischoff at Midnight Ink took a chance on it. And it's so interesting, especially for people of color when it comes to publishing, because you never know why people reject it. Is it because it's just not a good fit for them, or is it because they don't think Black people read books? They don't think people are going to read books with Black people as the main character. So I always tell people this. So my book had, by the time we got to Terry, it had very little edits. And so that book, when I said the 4 awards, it got 2-star reviews. And that was the same book that everyone rejected, so that's kind of been interesting. And so I kind of see it now. And whenever I see all these, like people like Abby in the New York Times, and people like Valerie Burns and Alexia Gordon, who started off, we were all the same years. Me and Alexia and Valerie Burns came out at the same time, along with Patricia Sargent, Olivia Matthews. And so to see people like Mia Mansala and all these diverse books, and to see people looking for diverse books when they were basically slamming the door in our faces 4 or 5 years ago is just so amazing to me. And I have some reservations, but we can talk about that in another question later. So next person.
Yeah, Austin, Abby, either of you want to tell us about your journey to publication?
I'll jump in. I started writing while I was in the Army. So we're thinking 1992, 3 in there. Spent a few years writing for my own amusement, as I think we all do, and collecting rejections. I had started with Hannibal Jones, who was a mixed race private eye. Similar idea. I said, nobody's done this yet. So I don't see anybody like this. So everybody will want this. Well, everybody didn't. Around 1999, there was this new thing coming out called print on demand. I decided, here's one way to find out if anybody wants to read my books. I did it myself for a few dollars, got in some bookstores. And after about 2 years, maybe, bumped into a small publisher at in New York, I guess, at Book Expo America, who liked my stuff and bought the rights, and we sailed along until that company went out of business. And then during that time, I had learned some important things. And one of those things was that nobody cares about your book as much as you do. So a lot of the marketing work is really on the author. At that point, I felt that I knew a lot about this. And so I decided to try it myself. And after the first dozen or so people asked me to help them self-publish, I decided, why don't we just form an imprint ourselves and do it? At that time, I was doing a lot of live stuff because around here, Borders was very open to local authors, and I could be in a bookstore every weekend if I wanted to and sign, 10 or 15 books and keep myself going. But now I write a little less, and I try to push other people's books a little more. That's pretty much where we are.
Well, as I said, started off self-publishing. I was a lawyer and I was a professor of economics, and I got sick and spent all day in the bed or else in the hospital. I was sick for about 4 years, but I needed something, to keep my mind off of that. So I started writing, and I ended up self-publishing. Didn't know that there were rules to writing. So I learned that along the way. I always wrote about Black characters. I never gave it a second thought. I had spent so much time reading legal briefs and, in college classes that I didn't really follow publishing. And even when I was self-publishing, I never thought about doing anything but what I was doing. I never thought about traditional publishing. And so I didn't know, all the stats, who reads and who doesn't, and who's in books and who isn't. But, you write what you know, whether you know that old adage or not. I know Black people. I'm Black. I wrote about me. So I self-published a couple series. I kind of went from a Dan Brownish kind of series with no action, not fast-paced. And, people asked about that, but I didn't want to write that. And cozy was a good fit. Murder happens off stage. It's still murder there, still clues that you can figure out. And I like that because I'm analytical. So I took my cozy to put in a promotion with a small press, Henry Press. They only did cozies just to get email addresses to build up my subscription list. And they read part of my book, a sample of my book or something. They told me later they never read the whole book, and they gave me a publishing deal. So my path was a little different. I never sent out for anything. I never queried. And right before the first book came out, an agent contacted me, and I thought, oh, this is not real because agents don't do that. So I decided not to answer her back, but I told a librarian, and she, pulled out a book and looked it up, and it actually wasn't a real agency or real agent. And that's how I got my agent. And she got me a deal with Penguin, not probably 3 months later. So that's where I am.
What year was that? What year was that? You should tell them the year.
So I think the first book from Henry Press came out in 2018, and 2019 I got the deal with Penguin. I got my agent in April, and I think maybe in December or January I got the deal with Penguin. So.
Yeah, and I want to touch on my own experience a little bit because it ties into what we've all discussed and what we and my next question as well. I started writing seriously, by which I mean every day, and probably around the time I got my first job and I'd graduated college, so around 98, 99. And then I didn't get, I had some close calls. I had some false starts. I had another agent other than Michelle, who I have now and is hopefully my agent for life. But I think Kellye feels the same way, not about me, about you. But when I was kind of a benefit, I benefited from the small press, quieter, the small press boon, because around like the late 2000s, early 2011s, there was, small presses were really coming into form, and a lot of stuff had opened up for those kind of opportunities. So I went that way. I got my agent, and I've been with my last book was with Crooked Lane, which is probably small to mid-size at this point. But I wanted to go into an experience that we all talked about, which is, the changes in publishing, from the advent of self-publishing to small publishers shuttering. And this isn't, limited to that realm either. I mean, big publishers close imprints and get bought and all the time. And so what has been the biggest change that you've each seen in publishing in your time in the industry?
Well, for me, when I first started, I mentioned this earlier before I think we were live, I was told that if I, people that self-publish, not because it was something I was looking forward to, it was just the buzz around being self-published. It wasn't necessarily a good thing. It was kind of a, how the saying goes that if you can't do, you teach, or however that goes. It sort of was that if you couldn't get self-published, traditionally published, then you were self-published. And if you self-published, you could never get a traditionally publishing deal. But today I got congratulatory flowers for being in the New York Times. So that has really switched up, and people don't look as poorly on self-published authors. I think when I first started out, that was probably 2013 is when I first published a book. And it was a different atmosphere. There's different readers. Self-published readers are more fickle. If you don't put a book out, boom, 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 they forget about you. They move on to the next author. But in the traditionally published world, I find that readers will stick with you. Even if your books come out a year apart, they're waiting and they will wait. Yeah. So it's, and for me, it's two different worlds. And so I don't know, I've just got into the traditionally published world. I don't know how it's changed over the years because I'm just getting there. But for self-published authors and self-publishing books, it's seen a big change and there's more respect. I think they're getting into, self-published books are getting into libraries, and none of those things happen. I sold my book for 99 cents and was happy for whoever read it. I remember when I first started, I put my first book up in June, I got no sales. July, I got no sales. August, I got 5. And then September, I got 522 because I learned, over time what to do. So I think it's changed a lot in the arena that I've been in, and I think it's changed for the better. So that's a good thing.
Austin, what about you? Because you've worked on both sides of the publishing fence.
Wow, so much has changed. I don't even know where to start with the biggest change. Maybe maybe the biggest change is the outlets. I mean, when I started out, there were bookstores everywhere. There were at least 4 major chains, and you could talk, try different places. Now with Borders dead and Little Professor's dead, and Barnes and Noble is the chain. And at least in my area, they have no interest in supporting local authors at all, let alone authors of color. They are focused on selling blockbusters. But the other thing is that most books aren't sold in bookstores. When I started out, they were. Now books are sold in Walmart, in Target, in Costco. Amazon is the biggest bookseller. And you're sure not going to sit on Amazon and do a signing or anything. Like you don't have any connection with humans through Amazon. So maybe that's what feels like the biggest difference, the biggest change.
Yeah.
I think so. For me, I was trying to figure out something good to say. I think this I feel like the evolution of cozies, because like I was mentioning when I started out, being having a Black woman, like my cozy set in LA, it was about an actress, and I think with cozies, there's certain tropes that when I was 11, I found like Joan Hess and Jane Jeffrey, and I found cozies. And so to kind of see this evolution where I felt like they kind of put cozies in a little box where it was like, you have to be small town, you have to have some kind of trade like cupcakes. She has to give you cupcake recipes, and it has to be, XYZ, and have these characters and this woman, and she has to come back from a big city. Like there's certain cozy tropes that I feel like if you don't check the boxes, you're getting rejected 4 or 5 years ago. And I think that was a great thing about Henry when it was around, and Midnight Ink when they were around, is that they were always like, not everyone wants to write nothing's wrong with the cozies that fit the check boxes, but not everyone wants to write those, and not everyone wants to read those. And I feel like Henry and like Midnight Ink, they were kind of servicing that when a lot of the bigger publishers, like no offense to Berkeley Prime Crime, it's great, but they had all their cozies are very similar. Like I remember they had 3 food truck cozies at one point between all the different publishers. And so the market got saturated a little bit. And then unfortunately, a lot of people, they kind of went back a little bit a few years ago, and they kind of let go of a lot of great series and authors because they oversaturated the market. And I'm not just saying it's Berkeley Prime Crime, I'm just talking about cozies in general. And so now they're kind of rebuilding it. I know with Berkeley, they're doing more millennial cozies. They're doing people like Abby and Mia, more diverse, Jennifer Chow, very more diverse cozies. And they want like people who seem more like millennials too, so kind of to see the evolution of cozies has been really interesting to me as someone who's always loved them, even though I don't write them anymore. And then of course, like I was saying, the trend of people of color, but like in the 90s, it was a trend with like Walter Mosley and like Barbara Neely and, Eleanor Taylor Bland. And a lot of them aren't published today because they viewed diversity as a trend, so I kind of see it today, and I'm super excited to see all of us being published and being wanted and being pursued and having agents contact us. But I'm kind of like, are you doing it because you truly believe that we finally need to have diversity, or are you doing it because it's trendy and editors want it now? Because my thing is with certain agents, this is what my issues with agents, like you're a gatekeeper. You could have been looking for diverse cozies 5 or 6 years ago and you weren't. So why are you looking for it now? Because that's the trend. So that's my issue. So I just don't want it to be a trend. I want it to be status quo. Because like Abby said, I'm always going to write Black people. So trendy or not, so what happens to people like us when it's not trendy anymore? And we're just as talented as we were before. So.
Yeah, I'll say, for me, one of the big, and I've mentioned this on other panels too. When I first got into writing and I started joining organizations, my big impetus was pushing for women voices. I had a lot of female friends who write crime fiction, and I was a member of organizations where, we'd go to like Thriller Fest, and a lot of women just didn't feel comfortable there. It was a very male centric conference. So I thought, but at the same time, what was crazy was that psychological thrillers, after Gone Girl came out and others, were the biggest commercial push in crime fiction.
Still are.
What's that?
I feel like they still are now at this point, which is great.
Yeah, right. And I think it, for me, it's some of my favorite books. They're some of my favorite books to read because you have such an investment in character and a complexity there. But I should have, what I should have been doing was looking at writers of color. and the thing is, I just didn't see any others out there. There were a couple. There was me, and I'm mixed, and I didn't really say, and it was Kellye, actually, when I was talking to you, who told me, like, the writers are out there. They're just not getting published.
Yes.
And that really changed. That was a waking moment for me.
Yeah.
Just look at Crime Writers of Color. How many people are in the group now, Kellye?
About 300 people.
Right. And I was able to put together, we have an anthology coming out, 20 authors, all crime writers of color, that we were able to put together without a problem. We had people asking to be in it. So, I think that we've always been out there. I haven't always been a writer, but I think they have always been out there. I know that they have always been out there. It's just like Kellye said, we were just unseen, but we've been unseen for a lot of years. And, hopefully in all areas that we weren't seen, that it now becomes the norm that we're just there. We're part of the conversation, not an exception to, and something that's happening now.
Yeah, I think that's the frustrating thing is, like, I'll see on Twitter, someone will be like, they'll talk about diversity, and like there's always like some like straight cis white guy who's like, well, obviously if they're not published, it's just because you're not good enough. And it's like, dude, that's not it at all. Maybe that's why you're not published, but for the rest of us, there's different issues. So
yeah, it's one of the things that I've been thinking about, and I haven't really, I kind of want to write something about it so I can study it a little bit more. But, because in addition to a writer, I also like to, I can't think of a way to say this is pretentious, but I like to also consider myself like a scholar of literature too. Like, I studied it in school, I got my master's. It's a little pretentious. As Schopenhauer said,
not like it's a bad thing.
It's a good thing.
No.
I talk about my degrees all the time. I have 3 degrees. I love saying that. I have enough degrees for everyone, I always say. So nothing wrong with that.
No, I mean, I did mention it, right?
You did mention it.
But the thing I'm thinking about is, we always look at like literary periods like realism and modernism and postmodernism and romanticism in terms of their prose and in terms of their stylistic trends. I feel like right now we're in a new literary phase. I think we're in a new period, and I think the defining thing is the diversity of voices.
Yeah.
I feel they're some of the most powerful stories, different stories. There's no, you can't quantify it as like a sort of, trend in prose because they're all different, but it's almost like a new truth.
Yes.
We're showing the world in ways that people haven't really always seen it before. And it's becoming, and judging by, the not entirely, but by the awards and by a lot of the books that are selling well, this is becoming more than a trend. It's showing some staying power.
Yeah, and it's funny. I feel like we talk about people of color because that's what we are. But you think about queer crime fiction, they're like way even behind us, and that's why I'm like so excited for like Philip Vernon and Bathhouse and like Kristen LaBianca, Lane Fargo, Cheryl Head, who's Black and she's queer, and so like that's the thing too, is like we're trendy now for reasons, but like why, like we need more queer authors too, like why don't they have that, and then what's it going to take for that? Does it have to take a tragedy for that to happen, so.
Yeah, Abby, Austin, did you want to weigh in on any of that, or do you want me to? I have, or I'd be happy to go to the next question as well.
I think, happy to go to the next one. I think it's well said.
So somebody's got a book coming out this year, let's say, a debut writer. What advice would you give her or him about entering publishing? Well, about entering the publishing sphere.
I can go if you guys want. I can go first. What do you think? So I talk to a lot of debut authors just through Pitch Wars and Crime Writers of Color. I always say it's one, keep your eyes on your own paper. I think it's easy to compare what you're doing compared to other debuts, compared to people who are further along in their career, and just focus on yourself and what you're doing and making sure you have the best book, because that's the only thing you can control. The other thing is it's a marathon, not a sprint. You might not be it. You might be a New York Times bestseller out the gate if you like Reese's Book Club, but you're probably not, and that doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means, again, the idea is just to keep publishing, and that's harder than I think a lot of people think. I think people think they get the first deal, like, or you can end up like me, where right now, like, I have no books out, even though like I had a 3-book deal because my publisher closed, and you just have to just keep writing. And also I say enjoy every moment, because this has probably been your dream for years. It's finally happening. And instead of stressing out about stuff, try to just enjoy like every victory, like every review. Well, not everyone, but like the first review and people, your first time you see someone talking about your book and a mention, just enjoy that. Just take the time to be proud of yourself. So
before we go to Abby Ross and Kellye, could you, just in case we have any aspiring to be traditionally published writers watching, can you explain Pitch Wars?
Sure. Pitch Wars is the biggest online mentoring program. It was started in 2012 by Brenda Drake. And the idea behind it is you take a emerging unagented writer, and you pair them with a more established writer who has an agent or a book deal, or even is a publishing professional. You spend 3 months revising the mentee's book for an agent showcase, where agents can kind of read your first page and pitch and ask to read more. And so since 2012, there have been over 400 success stories. I'm a success story with Hollywood Homicide. Kristen LaBianca was my mentee in 2015. So The Last Place You Look, which won the Seamus, that was the Pitch Wars book. Lane Fargo's first book, Hallie Sutton's first book. Mia Monsala was my mentee, although Arsenic and Adobo is not her Pitch Wars book. Zoya Stage, Baby Teeth, Pitch Wars. Tommy Adiyami with Children of Blood and Bone, Pitch Wars. Helen Huang, Pitch Wars with The Kiss Quotient. So there's been a lot of books and success from this mentoring program, and it's all volunteer run and it's all free. So I think we're going to do the next round probably in the fall. So go to pitchwars.org and you can learn more about it.
I think it's great. I tell everyone, I know I run into a lot of, I teach a lot of classes and do a lot of things with new writers, and I always pitch Wars.
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
It's an awesome thing. Yeah. Especially, to sit down with other people who have, already finished a book or published, yes, or have an agent. It's what every writer, I think, craves is answers. You want to do this. You don't know how to do this. Yeah. Who can you talk to? I'm big on writing community and sharing what you know. So resources. I think that's an excellent, yeah. I give kudos to that program.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you very much.
And if a writer wants to be a mentor, how does he or she go about that?
We will open up, you have to apply to be a mentor. And so it's a lot of questionnaire. So if you just go to pitchwars.org, we should have a sign up to apply to be a mentor. But we've had some, like Alex Segura is a mentor. I'm a mentor. Mia is a mentor. Elizabeth Little is a mentor. We've had some amazing mentors as well. Rob Hart has been a mentor for a couple of years. I'm sure I'm missing other people, but we've had some amazing Pitch Wars mentors as well. So
cool. Abby, you mentioned, the real need for questions, for how many questions a debut writer would have. Is there anything specific that you feel a debut writer should know?
Well, writers, so I'm differentiating that from an author who has actually published a book. I always tell them to finish the book. I get so many people that tell me, oh, I have all these books in my head. I'm working on 3 books now. And then I say, how long have you been writing this book? 10 years. Well, I don't care where you are, especially if you want to self-publish. You can't publish a book every 10 years. And I don't tell people, I write fast, but everyone has their thing about how they write, the mood they have to be in, the atmosphere, which computer, whether they're a plotter or a pantser. But yeah, they have to focus on one thing. Whatever your method is, you have to focus and get through it. You have to finish your book. You can't publish a book, no matter how many questions you ask me about how do I get on Amazon? How do I market? What do I do next? If that book isn't finished, there is no next. Work on finishing your book. And another thing I tell people, some people are very shy about their books and I don't want anyone to read it. So I kind of disagree with that. And then sometimes people, every chapter, they want someone to read it. And when other people read your book, especially other writers, they all have their own ideas of how it should go. I have my own ideas of how it should go. But that's not what they're writing. And a lot of times writers will get all this critique and then they go back and change everything because someone told them that this person shouldn't appear here, or someone told them they shouldn't appear here. And then now I teach a few classes on writing diverse characters. And I had one writer who said she was writing a book with just instruments. All of her characters were instruments. And she was worried about making them diverse, and if she was saying the wrong thing. They're instruments. I don't know if they have a gender or a color, but so you get people worried about the wrong things instead of writing the book. So it's always my first advice to everyone. My second advice is get into a writing community, because that's very important too.
Austin?
I guess, and I don't know if we're all speaking with one voice or not here, but building on what others have said, I would say become a part of the larger writing community. If you're a new writer and you're not published yet, put your face where editors and publishers are going to see you. Put your face where established writers are going to see you. Attend Thriller Fest, attend BoucherCon. Sit in the bar next to those other writers and chat with them. That, I think, was an essential part of how I learned how this whole thing works. It's also how I got my first publisher. It's also how I got the agent that I'm working with now. If you're sitting at home just staring at your book, you're not going to get it published by anyone. Be part of, and I think I can say with some confidence that writers in general are very welcoming to newcomers, and happy to share what they know, share their experience, help you as much as they can, not force you to change your book, but help you with some ideas that, oh, here's what worked for me. This didn't work for me. Editors want to hear this. Editors don't want to hear this. That's very valuable stuff. So yeah, be part of the mix.
I just want to add one caveat to that, but don't go up to someone, a stranger, and expect them to help you. That should not be your intro.
no.
It shouldn't be like, "Hi, I'm Kellye. Can you read my career letter? Can you send this to my agent?" I get that. I get that. So start a relationship with them and build something, and a friendship. Help them out. Writers will see when you plug their book on Twitter and Facebook, and do that. Help them out, and then the idea is then I'm going to offer to help you out because we're friends. And you've helped me out. But if you're just coming with your hand out expecting me to help you, and I'm busy, I have my own stuff to do. I'm not as apt to do that. So
yeah, I'll say that there is this business once you finally are on the other side of it, and you get to be on the other side of the stage. It's a lot of it's unfair to say it's a lot of networking and who you know, because you have to be good. Right. You have to have something, and writers can tell when you're faking the funk. They know it. But if you're good, then people are going to help you if you are, but I would say don't expect it.
Exactly.
I never do. I'm sure I plug books for people who don't care for me. And that's fine. If I believe in the book, I don't have a problem with that. I'm talking about Sean. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
gonna tell him. I'm gonna tell him. I'm a snitch.
Yeah, I know. So what? We did have a question that I wanted to get to, and it's more of a writing question, but I think it's perfect for you for this panel. Which is first, title, plot, or something else? What leads to your essentially? What's the inspiration when it comes to your books?
So for my current book, it was a headline. It was a really horrible daily news headline that I should probably try to find. I'll try to find it. But it was this headline that was so disrespectful about this Black woman reality star who died. And I was like, what a disrespectful headline. And that's where it came from. And then the idea went from there. So I'm going to try to find it as you guys talk.
I think for me too, but right now I write cozy mysteries, although I have a women's fiction that's coming out in August 22, I think, Where Wild Peaches Grow. So the plot, because I know I'm going to murder murder someone. Someone's got to die. And so after that, for me, comes names, because it takes me a long time to pick out names, because names then create people. They're not people to me, my characters, if they don't have names. So that's very important, because I believe that characters drive the plot. So I've got the plot. But for my women's fiction, Where Wild Peaches Grow. Did I say that already? I'll probably say it a couple of times. It was a story, sort of like what Kellye was saying. Someone emailed me and said, I heard about this story about slaves going to Union soldiers back during the Civil War and for help. And these Union soldiers put them in a cave, wouldn't let them out. They died screaming, we'll go back to slavery if need be. And they died, and their blood fertilized peaches in this canyon. And this is in Natchez, Mississippi, and supposedly a true story. So I go on the internet looking for this. This is a great story. I'm going to write about this story. Not only do I find out that that's not true, it's more of a lost cause story, but there are actually no peaches in Natchez, Mississippi. So, it was a story that wasn't true that led me to, well, why not write about someone who deals with the undocumented, rewritten Black history. So that idea gave me, the idea to write the story. And then, of course, came the names. Everyone has that. So they weren't real people. And the story
I think we all get our stories different ways.
Yeah.
It's not like it's always the same
Right.
pattern. I have had some come to me because a plot idea came up, and I had to create people to propel that plot. I've also had some where it started with the characters, and I wanted to see what they were going to do and where they were going to go. My most recent novel, The Wrong Kind, actually started because at a conference, someone told me about a murder method that just seemed so cool to me that I said,
I get excited about that.
I got to have somebody kill somebody that way. And the plot kind of grew in both directions that way. So it's you never know where it's going to come from. Whatever prompts you to sit down at that keyboard and punch those keys is the right thing.
Can I read the headline that I saw? So it says, yes. Lyric McHenry, pregnant former reality star found dead at 26 in Bronx with no pants and cocaine. And that was such a disrespectful headline. Wow. And I was like, you would never do that to a white person, to a Kardashian. And so, and the story itself was really interesting. And so I was kind of like, why? Because she's from like Hollywood. And I was like, why would this reality star who like grew up with the Magic Johnson's family like be found dead in like of overdose in the Bronx? And so I'm like walking down the street and I go, oh, she went to see her estranged sister. And so that's the idea behind the story, is that her sister, who is estranged, they haven't spoken in 2 years, finds out her sister has died 2 blocks from her house, and she wants to know what happened to her, that she's up there, and she feels a little guilty. So that's the story that I'm working on right now. It's called Like a Sister.
Oh. That headline sounds like a perfect writing prompt. Yeah, I would say that we would all write a completely different novel out of that.
We had another question.
We'll leave it to Kellye to write that one, though.
Yeah,
thank you.
She called dibs on it, to be fair. When did you know that you were ready to introduce your first book to readers? Did you have a specific feeling or inspiration to do it? And when I read this question, I think it can be answered or it can be taken a couple of ways. I'm going to phrase it to the sense of, when did you know your book was finished?
For me, it's always a feeling. I have a feeling. When I'm writing the book, all of a sudden the book becomes like a movie in my head. It's playing, the characters are doing things. And even when I'm away from it, I think, oh, I need to get back and watch that movie. I go, oh no, that's the book I'm working on. So then the movie ends. You can always kind of, at least I can't tell when a movie's wrapping up. I know it's getting ready to end. I start looking at my clock, or if I'm watching it on the computer or something, to see if the little red line is almost out. You get that feeling it's coming. So I work based on feelings on mostly everything. Names are feelings for me. The people are feelings for me. the way the book should look. I get a feeling. I'm a feelings kind of girl. So,
Austin, what about you?
Well, the process is kind of like this. I write the draft from beginning to end and don't look back. Then I go back to the beginning and do a rewrite. And the first time I go from the beginning to the end and didn't change anything, I declare victory. And then, of course, when I think it's finished, I send it to an editor who bleeds all over it. And then I make some changes and then it's finished. And then I send it to a proofreader and then I make those changes and then it's finished.
Yeah, similar. It's like I write till I can't make any change. I don't think it's amazing or done, but I'm like, oh, I don't know what else to do with this. And then I'll send it to my agent. I'll send it to my editor, you know, and I'm always wanting to, like, that's why I haven't read Hollywood Homicide. That was my first book in like 3 years because I know I want to still make edits to it. So I'm like, I'm just gonna not look at it anymore because I was like, why did I do that? Like, I want to change that line. So yeah, I never think it's done.
Oh, I feel you.
that's why I never go back and read a book.
You know,
I don't go back and read any of my books because I know I want to change them. And I don't do drafts. Whatever comes out at the end, that's it. And I never read it again.
You do one draft?
Yeah. I never do another one.
I wish.
Yeah.
Unless, you know, if I get a revision, something to revise back from the editor. But yeah, no, I can write in about 3 weeks and what I put in, that's it. Now I go back and I read from the beginning of the chapter when I get to the end of the chapter sometimes to make sure I don't miss periods or missed words or anything. I have a friend, a writing partner in California, and we read each other's chapters. But that's as much as I do.
Not me. I'm on like draft, I think I'm on draft 6 for this one, and I have a couple more. So must be nice.
I don't reread
those draft.
Unless it's for like a reading or an event or something. I don't reread. I never read my books, and I don't really trust. Right. Like I saw somebody on social media the other day talking about how they were reading their past books for something and how in love they realized they were so in love with their writing. And I was like, I do not trust that.
I know.
Some people are.
In that review today, it said that I dropped Murder, She Wrote quotes or something. And so someone asked me, what were the quotes? I go, I don't remember writing that. So I don't know what's in there. You know, and I'm not going to go back and look. So maybe someone who's read it can tell me.
Same. People have to tell me what happened in my book.
Yeah.
Let me just say that I don't go back and read my books, but when you listen to the audio book, which I do just to make sure there are no mistakes, you see your own work in a very different light. And there are moments where you go, wow, what a spectacular turn of phrase. And there are other moments when you go, oh my God, how did I leave that in there? It's all.
I know. Someone wrote a quote from my book one time. And I thought, oh my gosh, I did not write that. I wish I had written that. And I thought I need to go and email her and let her know that wasn't from my book. Maybe she picked it up somewhere else. And so I thought, but maybe it's, it's close to what I wrote. And it was exactly what I wrote. I went and looked and I thought, oh my God, that was pretty good. But that's why I don't read my own books, because I don't think 90% of it will be that good. And I'm afraid that, I've written this thing and I put it out here and oh my God, it's terrible. And people see that and I don't want to think about that. So
yeah, we sold audio for Hollywood Homicide like a couple of years after we sold the book. So it came out last year, 2020. And so I did listen, and it like you said, I was hearing it made me like also want to make changes, and I think also if you do readings, like Ed always hosts these readings, and I've read the first chapter of this current book, Like a Sister, several times, and I make edits just hearing it and kind of like out loud. So I actually tell people as an advice, read your book out loud for yourself and you can hear it differently and you see what you don't need and what you do need. So someone does the like Microsoft has a voice thing that you could do, and you could like have Microsoft read it, and so someone like say the mechanical voice actually helps, so someone does that too.
And I have friends who print out in different fonts, different colors. They put it up on as a PDF and upload it to their e-reader so they can see it, just so you're seeing it through it feels like different eyes. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I always find that every stage of it, like I don't handwrite anymore really, but you know, from like seeing it on the
Okay.
screen to printing it out to reading it out loud, it's like a different book every
Yep.
time.
This is like a sister. This is the draft, and it's I bound it. It's 350 pages. So yeah, I print them out too.
Yeah.
Got all those little colored sticky things in there and everything.
I notes myself to make it.
We had another question: traditional publishing versus indie publishing for a debut author. Good idea or not?
Which one? It says versus. What's a good idea? To do both? To do one or
To
the
do
other?
one, or would you? Yeah, if you're a debut writer, would you recommend? The question is, would you recommend the traditional route or the indie route?
I like both. I do both. The difference for me that makes one preferred, you know, in a certain area. Like I said, I started writing in 2013, self-published. In those days, you had to make, I think, $100 before Amazon would pay you, and then they pay you 60 days later. So for September, when I made the 522 sales, I got paid in November. And since November 2013, I have gotten a check every month from Amazon, a royalty check, as opposed to when I might get one from traditionally published. You know, it's when the contract is signed, but you know, first it goes in queue. That may be 4 months after you get the deal, 5 months, 6 months, or when it's accepted. That's also subjective. So for that, you know, if you're looking to make money on it, sometimes people just feel like, you know, your first book or any of your book, that's your baby. You want it to have the best of everything, you know. So you try. Why not try traditional? You know, try to get an agent, try to get it published. I think that if that's what you want to do, you should try that. Some people don't care. I just want my book out there. I'm happy with being self-published. So you have to kind of assess how you feel about it and what you want out of it, and to make that decision for yourself. But I say to everyone that wants to self-publish, don't pay a lot of money to get self-published. The whole thing is being self-published. You can do it basically for free. So don't spend a lot of money. You might have to spend some money on a cover. I do all my own covers, or and an editor. But other than that, you know, they have these things, Book Baby and all this stuff, $2,000-$3,000 to help you self-publish. But, you know, decide what you want to do and then seek some information out on that.
I always tell people to try traditional publishing first, because, you know, if somebody's going to hand you a pile of money for your book, why not go for it? Try traditional publishing, give yourself a deadline. If nobody bites after a certain point, then start talking to smaller publishers. And if nobody bites after a certain point and you still believe in your project, then go ahead and do it yourself. But when you're going for traditional publishing, there is always a long time gap. And I make sure to tell people, don't stop writing while you're waiting for someone to put that first book out there. Keep writing all the time. Keep producing. You're getting better. You're practicing, so to speak. That I think is a big mistake that a lot of beginning writers make. They write a book and they say, well, when I get this published, I'll start the next one. No. Not how that works.
I would say one thing to keep in mind, like, and I talked about this with Kellye a while back, and I wrote about it for the Independent, is that a lot of genre writers will complain about snobbishness from literary writers to genre, and that's out there. That does happen. That's not really a big deal because genre writers are making millions more than literary writers, so they're not really being hurt. I mean, the real snobbishness in publishing nowadays is between, and Abby touched on this, is between self and traditional. If you're self-published, you're not getting into a lot of the bigger reviews. You're not getting into a lot of the bookstores. You're not getting into a lot of conferences, and you're not getting into every organization. Those are all things that are huge boons to writers that are going to be real impasses for you. So, in libraries probably too, to an extent. There's a lot of barriers that still exist for self-published writers that you'll have to be aware of. if you go that route. So no matter what you do, talk to writers who've done both, who you respect, who you've read, and get their take as well, because they'll probably be honest with you. All right, we have to close. We have about 1 minute left, and I want to ask the three of you, one last question. I think we can do it in a minute. What's been your best experience as a published writer? Kellye?
Oh my God, I don't know. I feel like meeting you, Ed, it was just amazing.
No. That's not for me.
I think building the community, you know, I feel like I'm very my Alexa's about to go off. I'm very vocal about issues, and I have people to actually respond to them. I feel like I've helped make change, which is good. Obviously, like winning my awards was really great too, you know, but I just tried to enjoy every moment. So
I was wrong. We're not going to have time. We're getting ready to
Just
be
me.
kicked out. So thank you, Abby.
Just
Thank you,
me.
Austin. Thank you, Kellye.
No, just me.
Email us all and we'll tell you our favorite experiences.
Virtual bar, 5 o'clock. Thank you so much.
Bye,
Good job,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you for moderating.
Oh, yeah, of course. And
Great
thank
job.
you to Katie and Suffolk. We really appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.